All right, just do a sound check. Katie, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, so I think we are ready to get started. It is 8:33. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 11th Annual Power of the Partnership celebration, hosted by Franklin County. For those I have not met in person or virtually, my name is Silas Chamberlin. I am the DCNR internal lead for the Southbound Partnership, one of DCNR's 8 conservation landscapes. I also work with the wonderful Katie Hess, our external lead and director of the partnership, and also the wonderful Julia Chain, our program manager of the South Mountain Partnership. And I'm sure you guys will hear or see more from them throughout this morning's session. Just a few reminders before we jump into opening remarks in our presentations this morning. I believe everyone will be muted. So we are going to be using our question and answer function. I believe it's at the bottom of the screen, that if you do have specific questions during the opening remarks or specific questions during the presentations, I would say please use that function and we will address them accordingly throughout the morning. So to kick things off, I'm going to turn it over to the DCNR Secretary, Cindy Adams-Dunn, for opening remarks and a welcome. So Cindy, you can take it away.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. I wish we were in person. I love this event. This is one of those capstone events every year for me. Starts the year off right, being around wonderful partners, positive energy, all the great things that happen in the South Mountain Partnership. And I can remember every one of these breakfasts that I've attended. I can remember the locations, the people, Shippensburg, that camp in Cumberland County, Ski Liberty, down in Chambersburg with the ice sculptures on the sidewalk as we walked into the meeting. I can picture them all. So it's a testament to this committed partnership that you've all built together. It's a mosaic of the common aligned interests of all of you under the very capable leadership of Katie Hess and now Julia Chain and Tyler, and then before that, Mike Eshelman. And it's something that your work is something that we point to a lot in DCNR as perhaps the strongest model of a tightly woven partnership across the landscape in Pennsylvania. There's we have 8 CLIs that are all very special. They all have strong attributes, but the tight wovenness of this partnership stands out, and the diversity of it. And I think it's a testament to the creativity. It's a testament to all of you and the way you view yourselves, your landscape, your interest, and really open to weaving that together and welcoming new players into this partnership. So again, you're a model. Your work is phenomenal. As you know, we've taken Katie and spread her out across the whole Appalachian Trail landscape to kind of use her leadership across other CLIs as well, and that magical Appalachian Trail that traverses 11 counties in Pennsylvania. And Julia is stepping in, doing a wonderful job here, focused just on the South Mountain. So that's really great. Just a few things about DCNR. This is a transition year for us. So this is the last year of Governor Wolf's term, and in state government, that's a big deal. You get ready for a transition, you set everything up, and we are hitting this year's agenda very aggressively. We are excited by the work ahead. For full steam ahead. We're actually opening new doors, doing new things, really advancing the work, even in a transition year. We're making sure the initiatives that we've established carry through, and we have no worries about Conservation Landscape Initiative. It's so deeply connected to the communities. The county commissioners across all 8 landscapes are engaged in the conservation landscapes. County commissioners, as I'll be introducing a key one here very shortly, but county commissioners are critical in transitions. Legislators and executive branch of government, there's really no voice that's stronger in Harrisburg than the voice of the county commissioners. So that's critical for the South Mountain Partnership. But this year, you'll see us highlighting accomplishments a lot. That's not just to toot our horns. It's to sort of elevate the work that's been done and show the value so that it continues. And I'm really proud of the DCNR staff that are working on this, and also many of them are on this call today. I know there's at least 10 DCNR folks here. Lauren Emgren, our Deputy Secretary, who you know very well. Chris Novak, who's been with the South Mountain work from the beginning, is here. I know Meredith Hill, who leads our Conservation Landscape Initiative across the state, is here, and she also leads Pennsylvania Wilds. And we have, Lori Geik, our Central Regional Superintendent. So we've got a lot of key staff here, a lot of Parks and Forest staff as well. So I'm hoping in the chat function, I hope we do a lively chat function interaction during this call, and you get to meet folks that maybe you haven't met. You'll meet them in person as soon as we can possibly do that. And along the line of starting new work, we have hired Pennsylvania's first director of outdoor recreation. This COVID pandemic really highlighted what we already know, and that is outdoor recreation is critical to mental health, physical health, and it's particularly important in the COVID recovery because it's one of those things that elevates the economy of an area. It brings people together. It kind of builds a social cohesiveness. It gives people an outlet, things to do with the family and friends that are safe. And so we want to connect those dots with outdoor recreation as much as possible. And we've hired Nathan Rigner, and you'll meet him at some point. And Nathan is a PhD from Penn State, but he's done work internationally on outdoor recreation. And he'll be interacting with a lot of us to kind of weave together that nexus of really highlighting our recreation-based businesses, to highlight public lands and recreation providers, whether they're local or state, and bring in, kind of weave this all together to elevate Pennsylvania's recreation economy. We're fifth in the nation in terms of recreation economy, and many states have outdoor recreation endeavors, whether they're offices or whether they're committees or commissions. So we want to elevate Pennsylvania's outdoor recreation economy. This is something you live every day in the South Mountain Partnership, but that understanding is not shared, and we really haven't fully investigated and brought together the kind of partnership outdoor recreation can provide across all sectors. So stay tuned on that. We'll be making a lot of strides on outdoor rec. Climate resiliency. The South Mountain Partnership, the South Mountain work is one of the climate resiliency pilots we're doing. A couple projects on the ground. We recently completed a project up at Kings Gap. It's an Irish Gap. It's being done by Kings Gap Environmental Ed Center. As you may know, Scott Hackenberg just retired, so we're losing him to the landscape, unfortunately. But this project, the Irish Gap project, is a climate resiliency project looking at restoring a small stream in that gap. It's something you can see. There's a trail by the stream. We've had a lot of improvements to the stream, a lot of plantings, and a trail. So the Irish Gap project is something that I encourage you to look into. You can chat about it in the chat function if you want to learn where to find it and how to see it. We're doing a lot with riparian forest buffers, and when I turn to introduce Commissioner Keller, I'll just mention I'll mention how Franklin County is doing. But buffers have emerged as the best management practice of choice in the Chesapeake Bay effort in Pennsylvania. There's greater acceptance from farmers, and there's greater adoption by all landowners. There's a lot of interest in riparian forest buffers. DCNR is seeking funding so that we can get more of them on the ground. We're using some of our discretionary funds to get them going, but riparian forest buffers are blunting the impacts of flooding, cleaning up our streams, and adding fantastic habitat across Pennsylvania, and especially the Chesapeake Bay watershed. We're advancing in our commitment to the diversity, equity, inclusion, trying to make our trails or public lands welcoming to all. We had a lot of new users. You've seen them. We've seen them. A lot of new users have come out during the COVID pandemic. want to keep these folks engaged in hiking, engaged in using parks, have them feel welcome, have them, make it a lifetime endeavor. So we're really advancing our DEI work. We've got signage up. You'll see it around the parks and forests. We're going to do a next gen council to really get the younger voice advising us on our facilities and on our programs. So anyway, that's really a neat endeavor. It keeps yielding new results. Spring, this time of year, people in DC are focused on budget. The governor's budget address will be in early February. We are seeking additional funds through Senate Bill 525, Senator Gordner, Senator Mensch, and many co-sponsors have put that out. That would really help DCNR's park enforced infrastructure, grants program, trails, gaps. Senator Gaw introduced legislation, Clean Streams Act, that will help clean up Pennsylvania streams, help fund best management practices. And we also have the Keystone Tree Fund that was set up by a retired legislator, Garth Everett, from Lycoming County, who got a tree fund started with the voluntary $3 add-on for your vehicle registration. But anyway, that fund is yielding some results for tree planting, so that's great. Again, our landscape level work is advancing across the system. Pennsylvania Wilds had an incredible advancement with they're moving to the final stage of a Build Back Better initiative. There's an initiative at the federal level that would really put a lot of resources into the Pennsylvania Wilds. If you're interested, Meredith Hill would inform you about that, but that's exciting. Would really advance the work up in the Pennsylvania Wilds. So it's great things happening. It's a busy and exciting year. We're optimistic and hopeful with these budget, in this year's budget cycle. A lot of interest, again, these bills swirling around, a lot of interest in outdoor recreation, and a lot of understanding of the value of conservation and recreation in people's lives. And that's due in part to all of you raising these issues in your communities with the various sectors here. And one key player I'd like to introduce, David Keller, Franklin County Chairman of Commissioners, has been with the South Mountain Partnership from the very beginning. Really helped set the stage for the tenor of the relationship in South Mountain. As the partnership was being formed, a band started, and Commissioner Keller would bring a humongous cello to play. Everyone else had more portable instruments. But anyway, that the cohesion of this partnership is due in part to the early roots of the South Mountain Partnership, and that cohesion has just continued to grow and grow. Again, and people stay with it. I see all kinds of friends popping up on the chat and attendance here. So it's just great to see your names, and I look forward to actually breaking bread with you sometime in the future. But I was perusing the county website this morning, and it's just remarkable. Franklin County has been committed to conservation for a long time. I saw on the webpage that plant a tree, preserve our future. That is so true. I mean, tree planting preserves water, it helps with climate, it helps with property values, everything else. And Franklin County has been doing it a long time. The county's very smartly wrestling with the growth and various challenges brought on by the trucking and warehouses and all those hard land use decisions that come with increased growth. So, hats off to Franklin County, our host today, and I'd like with that to introduce Commissioner David Keller. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Dunn. I think it's always awesome that the Secretary of DCNR always shows such a personal interest in the South Mountain Conservation Landscape Initiative. It's just awesome, and we never take it for granted. So thank you so much, and good morning to you, Madam Secretary. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being with us. I'd first be remiss if I didn't make sure to invite you all to Ice Fest, which is the social event of the year in Franklin County in downtown Chambersburg. This is the 20th anniversary of of the Ice Fest. It's one of the biggest, if not the largest, festival of its kind in Pennsylvania. And like I said, it's 20 years old. And the highlight this year is there will be ice skating in downtown Chambersburg. So bring your kids, 6 years and older, $5 to rent skates and fall on your butt to your heart's content. It's going to be incredibly festive and fun on top of all the other great activities that occur in and around Ice Fest. So it's going to be cold, but I'll be out there if you have a chance to make it to Chambersburg any of the days from next Thursday through Sunday, and you see me downtown with my kids. Please holler at me and be sure to say hello. And I just want to thank you all for what you do and for being with us today. I hope you leave today's gathering feeling re-energized and reinvigorated and inspired. I know I always do. I get so much out of these gatherings. They're very informative, and I just always feel it's a great way to start the weekend, and I really feel inspired when it's all said and done. And to that point, I hope I just want to drive home the point that the South Mountain Partnership is more relevant now than it ever has been. And speaking for Franklin County, I can tell you personally that particularly in the last couple of years, the influence on decision-making at the county level in Franklin County has been very much informed by the partnership, in particular with our opposition to the Trans-Source Powerline project. The partnership was incredibly influential, among other folks, in getting the county to step up and participate and assist with the litigation, in which we've been very successful in partnership with Patty Nitterhouse and her team at Stop Trans-Source and Janet Pollard. We are in the appeal process. The other side is trying to get the utility commission's decision overturned, but we are continuing to fight that fight. And I'm proud of what we've been able to accomplish working with everyone thus far. And we are going to remain vigilant and hopefully remain successful too. And also another area that the partnership has been influential in my decision making, and I know our board in general has been with agricultural preservation. I know all the counties in South Central Pennsylvania, Franklin, Adams, and Cumberland included, are under great pressure now for solar development, and we certainly embrace the concepts of climate resiliency. We think solar energy is a great thing. We want to see it develop, but we also want to manage that and retain the characteristics of the county as much as possible. So to that point, I'm happy to announce that next week we'll be formalizing our plans to quadruple our spending in farmland preservation this year. We're increasing our funding to $750,000, which will leverage another approximately $2 million in state funding and should help us preserve over the next year another 1,000 acres, which will get us close to 20,000 acres overall. And we hope to be able to do that again next year. So I'm really excited about that. Solar development is an attractive option for a lot of farmers. It's an incredible economic incentive for them right now, and it's something that's hard to say no to. And we definitely want to see that occur, though, in a well-managed way. And we want our ag community to have options. So we're trying to move forward and do as much as we can in terms of farmland preservation. So Stay tuned for more on that. And last thing I'll share with you, I'm also excited to announce that we've partnered with the Cumberland Valley Rail Trail Council. Over the years, they've developed a wonderful asset in Cumberland County called the Cumberland Valley Rail Trail. I'm sure most folks on the call have been on it on their bike or walking or jogging individually or with their family. I know I've really taken advantage of it a lot these last couple of years. And so the southern terminus of the trail is going to be extended finally into Franklin County. It will extend from Bird Street there at the edge of Shippensburg University all the way out to the Southampton Township Municipal Building. So it'll add another approximately 1.3 miles to the trail coming into Franklin County. And our hope is that, well, the next step will be to partner again with Cumberland Valley Rail Trail Council to do a feasibility study to extend it all the way to Chambersburg and connect with the Borough of Chambersburg's rail trail as well. So I just think that would be a wonderful asset for the South Mountain region, and just dovetails nicely with all the other initiatives that the partnership is supporting. So it's going to be a great year in 2022 in Franklin County, and I know it's going to be a great year for the partnership overall. I wish everyone all the best. Keep in touch, and thanks again for being with us today. Back to you, Tyler.
All right. So to Secretary Dunn and Commissioner Keller, huge thank you for being here this morning. Your presence, opening remarks is always a great way to kick off these meetings. So huge thank you from Katie, Julie, and I, and everyone. So feel free to hang on as long as you'd like. So next, I'd like to introduce two of our sponsors and continued supporters for the South Mount Partnership in our program this morning. And just to note, without our partners and our sponsors like this to support our activities, we wouldn't be able to produce near as good as programs, materials, etc. So huge thank you to them. So I'm going to turn it over first to Patty Nitterhouse, owner of the Penn National Golf Course Community, to say hello and welcome the group.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. It's so nice to see everyone, or at least know that everyone's here. Your presence here and your participation in the South Mount Partnership makes you part of something that's really quite unique. You've heard a little bit of that from Secretary Dunn and Commissioner Keller's remarks. This partnership between DCNR and the Appalachian Trail Conservancy, and all of us, from municipalities to government agencies to educational institutions to businesses and private citizens, this partnership is making a difference to how people in our region perceive where they live. It's increasing the awareness of the value of our home. I've been involved with the partnership since its very early days. I've seen the evolution and the progress that the partnership has made. From under the direction of our first leader, Kim Williams, to the strategic visionary, John Peterson, and now to our broad thinking, Katie Hess. And I've seen the vision of the South Mountain Partnership realized over those years. The vision, and I quote, of people working together to secure a sustainable future for the South Mountain landscape. The landscape is our home. It is where we live. Together, the partnership strives to collaborate in sustaining all that makes our home landscape so special and supports the quality of life that we enjoy. I'm really pleased with the selection of our speakers today. Franklin County is growing at lightning speed. Everybody wants to be in Franklin County, from solar farms to mega farms to to developers, to warehouses, to distribution centers. Everybody wants to be in Franklin County. Our location is fabulous. The planning for that growth is a huge responsibility. So I'm really pleased that we're going to be hearing from our speakers today about the planning for where Franklin County is going to be. They say if you don't know where you're going, you're going to end up somewhere else. So I'm happy to know that this planning is as thoughtful and broad-reaching as it is. I acknowledge and appreciate the leadership of every person in this space. And I'm proud to be part of the work of the South Mountain Partnership. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty, for those wonderful remarks. Much appreciated. Great to have you here this morning. All right, so our next sponsor I'd like to introduce everyone to is Kristen Rowe, Director of Destination Marketing at the Cumberland Area Economic Development Corporation. So Kristen, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. We're so happy to be sponsoring this event. Cumberland Area Economic Development Corporation, we are the destination marketing organization and the economic development agency for Cumberland County, and we really believe in striving for the best balance we can when it comes to responsible development and sustaining our natural assets and resources here in our South Mountain region. Our strategy and vision for the county places a really strong emphasis on a healthy economic development ecosystem that allows for business growth, but also values our quality of life, the health of our residents, and respecting our environmental assets. We also want to protect all of those natural and outdoor assets while we strategically promote ourselves as a tourism destination. Here in Cumberland County, we continue to be the fastest growing county in the state, and we remain invested to and connected to organizations like the South Mountain Partnership to ensure that we're planning and growing in a sustainable way. So I'm keeping it short this morning, but thank you again for everything that you do, and I'm looking forward to the program today.
Thank you, Kristen. So again, thanks to Patty and Kristen for being our sponsors for our program. So now we'll jump into kind of the meat and potatoes of this morning's session. So I'm going to turn it over to Katie to introduce our next presenters.
Thank you all, and thank you, Tyler. Because Tyler does so much around the partnership without being acknowledged, I just want to take a moment to let everyone know that he is working alongside Julia and I almost on a daily basis, while also doing his DCNR job, which includes in part managing over 100 trail projects. So much thanks, Tyler. We could not be as successful as we are without you.
My pleasure. Good group to work with.
Yeah. So next up, we have Steve Thomas with us from the Franklin County Planning Department. I think Patty set us up perfectly. I'm not going to dive into what I said. She prefaced how important planning is. So Steve, I'll let you share your screen and we will be on with it.
Okay, sounds good. Is my sound coming through?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I think you need to stop sharing real quick. Okay. While I'm getting set up here, I will echo Commissioner Keller's sentiments that I also will be at Ice Fest. I probably will not be falling down. I'll actually be manning the Shippensburg University Alumni Association's hospitality room, which is indoors with hot chocolate. So if you're an alumni or maybe an aspiring future alumni, feel free to stop in and say hi to me, my wife, and kids, who I'm also trying to train up to be future alumni in the state system. Actually, I think Secretary Dunn, if she's still on, I think she's a former alumni as well. Okay. So Katie, is my screen?
It is. And I forgot to mention to our attendees today, we do have a few minutes at the end of Steve's presentation for questions and answers. So use that Q&A button near the bottom of your screen to submit questions throughout his presentation, and then we can pass those on to him. And you're
Sounds
getting
great.
lots of comments, Steve, that say go ship.
You're all right. I knew in the Cumberland Valley here, we got a lot of fellow alumni. That's great. Thank you for having me here this morning. I'm going to be sharing some information over the next 20 to 25 minutes. I do want to thank Secretary Dunn for her attendance here today and the words of encouragement that she provided. I also want to thank Commissioner Keller for being in attendance as well. His support for ag preservation clearly is coming through in the proverbial putting the money where the mouth is, and we greatly appreciate that. You're going to see some data here on Franklin County as far as our land use, our coverage, our economics. What we're going to be looking at is potential issues in the coming 10 years. For planners, a comprehensive plan is kind of the Super Bowl of opportunities because it only happens once every 10 years. So there's folks who go through their entire planning career never working on one if they move around to different organizations and communities. This will actually be my second comprehensive plan. The first one was when I was working in Fulton County. So it's my first one in Franklin County, which is exciting as a resident to work on a plan in the community in which, you know, I live, work, play. My kids are growing up. So it's definitely very exciting for myself. And Patty, thank you very much for the very great softball toss of setting the stage for land use and its importance. We're going to hit some of those highlight issues here as I go through the presentation. I do want to keep it interactive. So Julia or Katie, if there's good questions that come through, you know, feel free to interrupt and jump in. I don't want to do this as a lecture style event, but so again, my name is Steve Thomas. I'm the planning director here in Franklin County. I've been on board since June of 2019. So I came in bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Then that thing called COVID hit, and obviously that affected a lot of us. But I think that also gives opportunities for sound planning. I think it gives us an opportunity to really step back, look at what we want to accomplish as a community and how we want to put those steps together into a cohesive plan that is obtainable and implementable. So I'm going to go over a couple of those items here as we get started. So I just wanted to share some of the guiding mission and guiding principles for the planning department as outlined by the county commissioners over a number of years. We're really here to foster the growth of Franklin County. We really want to ensure that all the residents have a positive life, an encouraging life, you know, that we want things to be pleasant, helpful, and harmonious with the environment. We really want to ensure that the folks here love living here, working here, and want to make a family life here. We do this by looking at a number of initiatives, and these are all very broad level. That's where the comprehensive plan comes in later on to take those broad level initiatives and boil them down into strategies and objectives that actually can achieve the goals that we talk about. Obviously, we want to promote economic development. We want to revitalize our communities. Pennsylvania is a very old state, you know, of one of the founding colonies. So obviously we have a lot of older communities, communities that have seen a lot of growth over their careers and lives, but then maybe a diminishing, you know, so we want to make sure that we are really focusing on our local communities. In tandem, we want to also support open space, the aesthetics, the historic character. I know we've already touched on the Transverse pipeline, power line. We've already touched on solar, which I have a little bit later on. But one of the reasons we hear that folks move to Franklin County and want to stay here is the way it looks. They like driving by farmlands. They like seeing the open space. They like the views of you know, the Kittatinny Ridge and South Mountain. So they like seeing what we have to offer. We do have a lot of historic character. All you have to do is stop by downtown Chambersburg, Mercersburg, Waynesboro, you know, look for the historical markers. The history is all around us, and that all contributes to the character of the communities that we live in. So obviously we definitely take that to heart. Right in line with that, protecting our farms, forests, and streams. Again, at this point, Franklin County has well over 18,000 acres of preserved farms. And with the commissioner's benevolence here coming up next week, it's going to put Rochelle Barbanchek into my office into overdrive in getting the next farms ranked. As far as farmland preservation, we're well into the top 10 in all of the state. And I think that's a very admirable opportunity and achievement. But it definitely keeps us busy. We definitely focus on how we can protect these farms. And not only that, we're also looking at, are there ways to support and provide value to the farmers? If anybody's actually talked to a farmer too, they say, yeah, farming, protecting the farmland is a great way too, but making farming is a viable career option for families and new new, young, and up and coming farmers is a great way to really preserve things. And obviously that goes a long way into protecting our forest and streams. We obviously do have the tree program. Back in 2018, we passed well over 150,000 trees planted, and we've just always been growing from there. So it's a great opportunity for us to really give back and protect the environment that we've been put in charge of. And then last, we here have our recreational and natural resources. Again, as I think it's been alluded to by everybody that spoke before me, outdoor recreation skyrocketed during COVID. During quarantine, you couldn't really go anywhere else, so you went outside. And it was a great opportunity for, I think, a lot of residents in Franklin County, and I'm sure in Cumberland, Adams, York, to really see that their communities have a lot to offer. And so as part of our planning process, we want to make sure that those opportunities are known and protected well into the future. All right, just chatting to the chat box every now and then. Okay. So when I first came on board, we put together a fact sheet for the department so people actually knew who we were. Nicole Bowling, who's on my staff, is here today. She's our senior planner. The very first time she put it together, she actually had pictures of all the people from the movie or the TV show Parks and Rec, which was very humorous for myself, but we wanted to make sure we were a little more serious than that. And actually, thankfully, some of these numbers are actually outdated. We're actually working on it, updating it for the year 2022. So there you can see at the bottom, we're ranked 10th in farmland preservation. That number is not accurate because of the number of acres that we preserved last year, and clearly won't be accurate after the end of this year with the influx of funding that we're going to be putting into that program. But I think what really points out is in tandem with the farmland preservation, look at the ag cash receipts. We get those from the Department of Agriculture. And then what we're ranked in cropland and production of milk. So clearly Franklin County is an agrarian society, but we do have a lot of development pressures. I think Secretary Dunn alluded to these with the industrial growth, the warehousing, and the importance of I-81 as it impacts those opportunities as well as housing. So our population has grown. We're not the fastest growing county, Cumberland County to our north, but we're definitely one of the fastest. We're sandwiched in between Washington County, Maryland to our south, which is one of the most rapid growing counties in Maryland, and obviously Cumberland County to our north, which is the fastest growing in Pennsylvania. So that does put certain pressures on us, certain land use issues that we need to keep in mind, because the issues we are experiencing with transportation may be occurring outside of our borders. So if we have a large Amazon warehouse built in Washington County, we may not see the tax revenue or all the job creation, but we're going to see a lot of the truck traffic that goes along with it. So we're definitely going to be keeping those things in mind as we enter into our comprehensive plan. So with regards to the comprehensive plan itself, it was last adopted in 2012. So again, this is a 10-year cycle. So it's an exciting opportunity to really jump into looking at what the issues are. I'm going to outline a couple of those high-level issues that we've identified already. One of the big changes we're going to be making, and this is just it's an administrative note for everyone, but we're going to be updating the plan into a more accessible platform. So ArcHub and ArcStoryMap, if you're familiar with those platforms, they're much more interactive, web-based applications. What we realized quickly is that folks don't pick up 300-page documents just for Sunday night reading. But what we are realizing is that folks will pick up a smartphone, they'll quickly scroll to the Franklin County Facebook page, click on a link, and read a 2-minute story. And so that's what we're really going to be doing, is we're going to use the story map as it says, storytelling opportunity. I think to tell the story of Franklin County, where we're at, where we want to go. And we want to make sure that it's accessible to as many of our population as possible. Obviously, we will have printed opportunities because we do have a number of folks who don't have access to internet. And so we want to ensure that we're not disparaging any of our community members in access to the planning process. As I talked a little bit ago about implementation, action steps, and indicators, a lot of times if you look at historic comprehensive plans across the state, they're lengthy documents that have 50, 60, 70 action items. You review it 10 years later and you realize you accomplished 4. What we're going to be looking at doing is really boiling that down to maybe the top 8 to 10 issues. What are the issues that we are concerned about, and what are the steps that we're going to take to solve those? That way we actually make them very identifiable, very concrete. And with that, obviously, there's a combination of identifying funding opportunities, but also identifying responsible parties. So if it's municipalities, if it's nonprofit organizations, if it's authorities, we want to make sure that we outline all of that accurately as possible to really make the plan mean something. My staff and I, when we set out to really scope this out about a year ago, we really did not want to have a document that just holds up the other documents. We want to make something that we're proud of, that we're excited about, and that people can actually reference. I will say I am proud that the 2012 plan was referenced heavily in the TransSource conversations. And then it's an important consideration. So when you're defending why you're making decisions, having a solid, well-researched, well-defined comprehensive plan gives you that backing. And so I'm sure we'll be able to attain the same thing here the next 10 years. One area that we really identified that we want to really beef up our opportunities on is value added and specific citizen engagement. We're going to be moving beyond historic comprehensive plan public outreach, which is a Thursday night meeting from 4 to 6 p.m. with a couple poster boards. That's not equitable outreach to our communities. Franklin County is growing in our Hispanic, our African-American communities. We have actually a large Haitian Creole population. And so we want to ensure that we're reaching out to those folks. We want to talk to folks that don't typically engage in the planning process, that don't come to public meetings, that may not have the same access to materials. So we're going to be identifying some key community members, whether they be religious organizations or nonprofits or healthcare, to really help us reach out to those folks, get their input on where they want to see the county going over the next 10 years. Another element that we're really going to be focusing on is setting up a framework for municipalities. Since I've been in the position now for 2.5 years, I've had about 6 or 7 townships and boroughs approach me about redoing their comprehensive plans. I've kind of pushed them all back because really if the county can pick up a lot of the work, I think what we can do is set a framework that those municipalities can utilize a lot of our data, a lot of our initiatives, and then they can develop their own plans. And then you get congruency. And so then where maybe here in Mercersburg, we have Mercersburg, Montgomery, Peters all work together, and their community plan really mimics what the county's doing. I think that gives a lot of strong cohesion. I think it gives consistency, obviously, for grant opportunities, but also for development opportunities. I think it creates an even playing field and gives some opportunity for folks to really stay on par with each other. So I'm excited about that. I know a lot of municipalities I've talked to are excited. And lastly, we will be bringing on a consultant to assist with some of the work, especially the economic development analysis, some of the other opportunities. But we're really looking at it as a partnership between planning, GIS, and our consulting team, and they're brought on here the next couple of weeks. See one Q&A. So Wendy was asking if we considered including wildland conservation in that outlook. Yes, we have. Actually, one of the projects that we recently partnered with was the Kittatinny Ridge Association. Jean Ortiz, she's part of the Audubon, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
For the return on environment report.
Yep. So we did a return on environment report where we were analyzing the value of our open spaces, our various ecological resources, if you want to say so, either woodland, cropland, wetland areas, to see how they value into our communities. And so part of that, we'll look at conservation efforts through identification of those resources. So we want to be very strategic in how we look at those. So hopefully that answers the question.
Steve, there was another question submitted through the chat.
Sure.
Asking if Franklin County is considering an official map or similar tool to use in sustaining a sustainable direction for Franklin County.
Yep, great. So that looks like from the Franklin County Visitors Bureau. So actually your ears must have been burning. I had a conversation, it's been a little while ago, with Commissioner Zabrowski about utilization of an official map at the county level. So right now I'm coordinating with my staff and the county legal team just to see how an official map would work at a county level. I know how they work at municipal levels. A lot of times you'll see them for transportation improvements, intersection improvements, maybe developments of corridors. So we are looking into that as a tool. I think we have some opportunities, whether it comes into land use or community projects, county projects. I think we can look into that, but that's on the radar to be researched and looked into. So some folks already stole my thunder. Thank you. But I wanted to identify some of the biggest issues to be addressed. First and foremost, for me, at least what I'm hearing locally, it's going to be grid scale solar. My predecessors in planning 10 years ago had to deal with Marcellus Shale. My predecessors from 25, 30 years ago had to deal with adult bookstores. So I think grid scale solar is probably going to be defining my career at Shippensburg or at Franklin County. I'm in two minds right now. I'm looking at my SHIP alumni notes. That's why. And so really this is a big issue. And where we're really going to be doing is doing a lot of in-depth research. I think we're going to be doing some additional conversations with Penn State. They have done a lot of work on solar because we do realize that green infrastructure, renewable energy are vital. But at the same time, we also realize that land is not growing, right? There's no new land being developed, but also that we do have private property rights. We have farmers. My father-in-law actually is a dairy farmer. He gets a solar letter once a month, and the opportunity financially is much more than what he's getting on a milk check. But he's opted to obviously not do solar at this time. So it is something that's going to define, I think, this comprehensive plan and how we move forward, because I think there's a lot of views on it. There's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of opinions. So we'll be working closely with the commissioners and other resources and technical experts to really identify where we want to go. We know the municipalities are really keenly looking at it as well. And so we definitely want to keep that in mind.
And I think a few of you signed up to be part of our solar work group as well.
I did,
Thanks.
yes.
I hope. Okay.
Yes, and actually, I'm trying to reach out to New York State. I saw New York State Legislature actually created a solar work group as well at the state level to identify prime properties to be developed for solar. I think they were using a combination of soil classifications, view sheds, and a couple other factors. So I haven't heard back. I sent an email to a generic New York State House email and it hasn't come back yet. So I'll keep everyone posted. The other big land use I think we're going to be really tackling or have to tackle is warehousing and associated truck traffic. We know that recently here, the federal government passed an infrastructure investment bill. And so we're definitely keeping an eye on PennDOT and how they're going to be allocating that funding. I know the commissioners and the FCADC have advocated for improvements along Interstate 81, which is definitely needed as far as truck volumes are increasing. Where you have increased truck traffic, you do have an increased risk of fatalities and serious injuries. When you're dealing with a 1,000-pound vehicle going 65 miles an hour, it does create an issue. And obviously we have the growth of warehousing. Antrim Township, Southampton Township are just growing exponentially in the warehousing. I'm probably just as guilty as most folks on the call. I like to have my bookcase from Amazon the next day, but that comes at a price. And so I think that's something that we're going to be grappling with here over the next 10 years as we look at online e-commerce and how that affects our warehousing and truck traffic. We are going to be looking at, I call it two different approaches to housing: affordable housing, which is what you would typically think of as maybe subsidized housing, Section 8 housing, and then housing affordability. And I do think there is a difference. In those terminologies, I think where housing affordability, we're looking at maybe a young couple, a mom and a dad and one kid, they're both working $15 an hour jobs. Like, are we providing housing that they can actually afford in the county? So we definitely want to make sure that the jobs we're lining up with are lining up with the housing stock that we're providing. I'm proud to say that we are working with Shippensburg University's Center for Land Use, Dr. Claire Jansen, Dr. George Pomeroy, on a housing inventory and analysis. That project actually should be finished up here within the next couple of weeks, which will give us a really good baseline report on where we're at with housing and what it looks like here in Franklin County. So hopefully that paints a solid picture for us, or at least confirms what we already think we know. I do have on here COVID impacts, known and unknown. When I say COVID, we're not talking necessarily the medical side, but that plays into it. I think COVID is going to have impacts that are long-standing on our supply chain issues, on product availability. I think folks are going to be more keenly aware of access to healthcare. So if you're looking at folks, let's say the Southgate Center area, that's just one area that I walk the rail trail quite frequently down there for my lunch break, so I see it frequently. Are those folks having opportunity to access equitable healthcare, or folks maybe in our rural communities who don't have cars or rely on public transportation? So I think our COVID impacts will be identified. We're really not sure what those are going to look like, but I think we're going to set together a framework to maybe address those as we move on the next 10 years. As was asked earlier, resource conservation, outdoor recreation, obviously a very high priority for us. As Commissioner Keller alluded to, we are actively working with the Cumberland Valley Rail Trail Association to make the connection to the Chambersburg Rail Trail up to Shippensburg. I do know that the one in Shippensburg to Newville is used very heavily. It's very popular. It's very safe. It's a great opportunity for folks to get outdoors of all skill levels too. I think that's an important part too of outdoor recreation. When you have a rail trail that's paved, you're now allowing for ADA accessibility, which is wonderful. So you're broadening your opportunities for your residents to access recreation. And as I kind of tied in there, equal access to service and opportunities. Again, I think one thing that I've noticed with Franklin County is that there is an aging population. One of the trends is aging in place. So folks are no longer buying that house in Florida and moving. They want to stay where they're, where they grew up. They want to stay where their family and friends and kids are. But that comes with challenges. Obviously that's going to place a little extra stress on our healthcare system. Maybe it's on the transportation network as well. So we want to ensure that those folks who opt to stay here and live out their senior years have the same access to opportunities as other folks. And lastly, I know I have a couple of questions I want to get to, and I want to keep everyone on time. I think the partnership opportunities that Nicole and I were thinking about, I think these are things for the partnership as a whole to think about. Identification of our resources, advocating for consistency along the South Mountain landscape, implementation assistance, and then involvement through the process. So obviously we'll be doing a lot of, to be redundant, comprehensive outreach, but we want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to participate in the process. And we're going to rely on a lot of the partners to help us with implementing the plan. With a staff of 7, we can't just do it all on our own, nor do we have the authority to, but I also don't think that we should in a way. I think that these plans are more successful when there's more folks involved and everyone has a piece of it. I think that gives ownership and it gives life to the plan beyond just Steve Thomas's opinions on everything. So that is what I have. I think I see the Q&A opened up. Okay, John, thank you for that comment about the newly formed Cumberland Valley Wildlife Habitat Restoration Initiative. So that's something I had not heard of. So that's great. I'll have Nicole take a note of that. Something we'll definitely look into.
I'll also loop you guys into that. That's being explored by the Pennsylvania Game Commission and their program with private property owners. So they're interested in connecting private properties between the Kittatinny Ridge, which is near where I first grew up, in Edenville, the St. Thomas area, Fort Loudon, and all the way through the valley toward Michaud State Forest. So if this appeals to you, reach out to me and I can give you more information and loop you in.
Great. Thank you, Katie. And then let me read the question here from Bob. Bob, you actually bring up a great point, and it's a point that PennDOT is bringing back to us quite frequently at the MPO, which is the Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is a fancy way of saying transportation planning in Franklin County, is the association and the tie between permitting and construction and the impact on the infrastructure system. We want to avoid issues where we have development and then we point the finger at somebody else to solve the problem. We want to try and make it more. We've had a lot of great conversations with Brad Graham, Sam Kressler, Don in Guilford, discussing this very issue that it's not just a single silo issue. It does have a lot of outreaching effects. So we will definitely be considering transportation in this. And actually, I will say, just for the record, the county's long-range transportation plan is currently underway. We're in the data gathering stages of that. So we'll be pushing out information. We can share that, Katie, with you so that the partnership can be aware of our transportation efforts as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. Transportation has a lot to do with conservation. So I appreciate that.
All right, and then Sean asked if Cumberland County has a nice water trail and are extending it. Can Franklin County do something similar? I would say if the opportunity is there, I do believe Green Township is actually working on a water trail up in the Scotland area. I think they're coordinating with DEP on a canoe or kayak entrance point and then are continuing to work on that. Actually, I'm pleased to say that that project was actually partially funded by the commissioners through our Tourism and Quality of Life Enhancement Grant Program. I know that's been a great grant program to support those efforts. So I don't know if Sean, if the one you're in Cumberland County you're referring to is county sponsored or if it's municipal sponsored, but I do at least know Green Township is working on one, the northern part of our county.
Right. I think
Ken had a comment in the chat. Are there discussions about using warehouse rooftops as solar farms? So yes, the challenge that we've discovered so far, Ken, is that the warehouse has to be designed structurally to handle the weight of the solar panels. And if it's not, retrofitting becomes very expensive. I do know that the New Jersey state legislature requires anything over, I'm not going to 100% on the number, maybe 150 to 200,000 square feet has to be solar compatible. Pennsylvania has not adopted that I know of. It is an opportunity. I think there really becomes an issue between the private entities that want to engage in that. I'm not sure if those solars are designed to just supply power to the warehouse itself, or if they're actually grid scale where it's sold out. But it will be a discussion point, Ken. So thank you for bringing that up.
all right. Thank you for doing double duty, being your own moderator. That was awesome, Steve.
No
That
problem
made
at all. No
my
problem.
job a lot easier.
That's why we're here, Katie. You're doing a great job. Thank you. Commissioner Keller?
Katie, could I just add
Absolutely.
regarding solar, we're certainly not waiting until the comprehensive plan, the new one comes out to address the solar issue. Of course, I mentioned the ag preservation piece of it, but Steve and his team had a municipal summit recently. It was one of the focused discussions that he led. Ahead of that, he and his team reached out to all the municipalities in the county, and for the ones for whom solar is an issue right now, the offer was made to provide technical assistance, connect people with information, help with model ordinances for regulating setbacks and screening and that sort of thing. I know some municipalities are further ahead on the issue than others. We're trying to facilitate and make sure that everyone at the local level knows what their options are. Some municipalities have, taken us up on the offer to be of assistance. Others don't see it as an issue at this point that they feel they need to do anything about. So therein lies some of the challenge. Land use is historically, statutorily, a municipal function. However, the county does have some options where the local municipality does not choose to act. So I think that will be a part of the discussion during the comprehensive plan development as well, and as we go forward with solar issue. So Steve, anything else to add there?
Nope, I think you captured it very accurately, but part of my effort since I came on was really to try to build a relationship that Phil Tarquino had with the municipalities to make it more consistent. And I think they've taken us up on a lot of opportunities so far. So
good.
We're working with them. Yeah.
And the last thing I'll add is the comprehensive plan is something we do take very seriously. Steve's going to make sure we come away with some actionable items and make it a living, breathing document. As Janet Pollard has said several times, it was strategic in the litigation with Transsource. In fact, I believe the Public Utilities Commission and maybe even the Commonwealth Court judge quoted verbatim from our comprehensive plan. So it is a vitally important document and process. So.
Yep, thank you, Commissioner. We appreciate your support for the project. I also just publicly put out that Nicole in my office was able to secure a MAP grant through DCED to fund it. So she's done a lot of great work on my behalf, and really has put a lot of heart and faith into it. So I want to thank her publicly for that.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Katie.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you're doing. That's fantastic. All right, next up, we have Silas Chamberlin. And Silas, as you are sharing your screen, I'm just going to do a very brief introduction because you deserve it. I want to point out that Silas deserves a lot of credit. He has been traveling far and wide throughout Pennsylvania to bring to the forefront of our work and anyone who cares about conservation and recreation to the opportunity to use ARPA funds for conservation and recreation. And I think that in large part because of him and his team at York County Economic Alliance, the first ARPA award in the South Mountain region for recreation was given by York County to the Friends of the South Mountain Trolley Greenway Rail Trail Project. So thank you so much, Silas. Can't wait to hear from you today.
Great. Thanks, Katie, and thanks to everyone for giving me some time to be part of your agenda. Obviously happy to be joining you from York County, which has a small but mighty slither of the conservation landscape. It's been great to hear what the other counties are up to as well. So I'm going to share a lot of information with you. Hopefully some of it is new or encourages you to think differently about information that has been available to you for a number of months now about the American Rescue Plan. And don't worry about taking notes on this. I'm sure it can be made available to you afterwards. Just a disclaimer up front that, and actually an encouragement that although I'm going to focus a lot today on how these funds can be used for conservation related investments, ARPA can also be used for many other things that folks in the landscape care about, like heritage tourism, cultural resource management, historic preservation, placemaking. As I'll argue today, the availability of funding for these types of uses really depends on how a community looks at those kinds of issues as part of their response to the pandemic and part of their economic recovery. The US Treasury just published their final rule on ARPA on January 6th. So although I've been presenting on this now for 6 or 8 months, this is one of the first presentations with a final rule in place. So it's good timing. And that final rule will become effective on April 1st, 2022. And until then, the interim final rule remains in place. And that all becomes important because many municipalities and counties have sort of been hesitant to move forward on using their ARPA funding until a final rule has been in place. But now with clear guidance from the Treasury and from their clear guidance that the interim rule is consistent with the final rule, now hopefully nobody is sitting on the sideline saying, well, we can't act yet. Now is the time to start acting if you haven't already. And again, this presentation is based on my personal interpretation. You all have solicitors that I'm sure are making their own interpretations. Many advocacy groups that provide information to municipalities and counties are putting out their own interpretations. And so the best source of information is not all these groups, it is the actual US Treasury's final rule itself. And I would encourage you to not just rely on any single person's interpretation and really try to think creatively about this document. The final note there is that the final rule is 437 pages long. I have read the whole thing. It can be overwhelming, but if you want to go into it and just do a simple word search for parks, trails, recreation, it is not tough to comprehend. So this is not the kind of thing where you have to solely rely on what your solicitor is telling you or what some outside group is telling you. You can go on the website and easily access this information. So just an overview for those who may not be familiar with the rescue plan. This was the COVID-19 stimulus package that was passed back in March of 2021. It included $1.9 trillion for a variety of responses to the pandemic that range from support for education to public transit to helping people comply with the CDC's guidance and vaccine distribution. In Pennsylvania, our state government, our counties, and every local government all received funding unless they opted to decline funding. And there were some municipalities in Pennsylvania that did. The state received a total of $7.5 billion directly. The counties received direct allocations of $2.8 billion, and municipalities received $3.3 billion. So these are not insignificant sums of money. They are new funding at a historical level. So who's getting the funding? As I said, every county and individual municipality has received their own funds, some of which came directly to them from the federal government. If they were a county government and municipality with more than 50,000 residents, smaller municipalities received their allocations via DCED, but those allocations have occurred. And there are publicly accessible resources to find out how much funding your borough or your township or your county received. Obviously, you can't click on the screen here, but if you Google ARPA allocations to municipalities or to counties, you can find these lists very easily. So these are very substantial allocations, even when you look at individual municipalities and counties that range from hundreds of thousands of dollars to well over $100 million for some of our more populous counties. And for municipalities, a similar range, tens of thousands of dollars to multiple millions of dollars that are, as you'll see, available for a lot of different types of projects. Just to bring this a little closer to home, for example, you can see Adams County received a direct allocation of 20 million, Cumberland County close to 50 million. And then you can see declining amounts depending on population for the boroughs and even rural townships. So everybody was receiving funding. The major question that we've been all trying to confront since March of 2021 is how can these funds be used? And there are lots of interpretations, but we'll start with what are the ones that have consistently been identified by the US Treasury and are both in the interim rule and the final rule. And those include some that are very obvious: supporting public health expenditures. This is a pandemic response piece of legislation, so it makes sense that things like COVID-19 mitigation efforts, medical expenses, behavioral health care are all covered. Addressing the negative economic impacts caused by the pandemic, including economic harms to a variety of different groups and industries. And I'll share a little bit more about that in a moment. A key one is replacing lost public sector revenue. So that means that ARPA funds can be used to provide any service traditionally provided by a government. So the idea here is that during the pandemic, municipalities and counties lost revenue, and they may use these funds to replace it. So if you had a program that was cut or reduced because of lost revenue, your municipality can now restore that. One of the things that the final rule clarified is that even for smaller recipients of funds, if you want to claim all of your funding as replaced revenue, you can do so up to $10 million, which is the standard allowance. And the important thing about the replacement revenue part of this funding is that that funding can be used on anything that the municipality wants to. So the idea that the Treasury identifies lots of specific uses, lots of broad uses, but then gives wide discretion to communities to decide how to use their funding. And particularly with the lost revenue replacement, there's very wide discretion on how that funding can be used. And then investing in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. The final one is support safe reopening of businesses in the tourism, travel, and hospitality industries. That's because those industries were particularly hard hit due to COVID and business restrictions. And again, within all these categories, there is broad flexibility. The Treasury Department says it over and over again in their guidance and their FAQs and their final plan. That, quote, recipients have broad flexibility to identify and respond to pandemic impacts and serve populations that experience pandemic impacts beyond those listed just in the rule. In other words, you have the ability to tailor the use of ARPA funds to what the needs are in your community. So importantly, when you look at the final rule, well, at least the interim rule, and now in the final rule, there is a reference to parks in particular, but conservation, trails, parks, and recreation do not show up often in this guidance. So don't let that discourage you, because neither do specific types of industry show up specifically in the guidance, and yet significant ARPA funding are going to those. For those of you that were familiar with the CARES Act funding that was available in 2020, that was a very similar funding source to ARPA. And across Pennsylvania, municipalities, in that case, it was only counties receiving funds, gave funding directly to recreational uses, repaving of trails, improvements to trailheads, funding for heritage areas and conservation landscapes. And Treasury has said explicitly that the uses that were eligible under CARES are also eligible uses for ARPA funding. So there was a precedent set in 2020 that now can be pointed to in 2022 as, you know, a reason why these are eligible uses. Some of you may also be familiar that We Conserve PA, which is the statewide land trust organization in Pennsylvania, secured a legal opinion which says very clearly that these ARPA funds are eligible for conservation uses. If you want to see that opinion letter, then you can go to weconservepa.org. The reason this is important is because many municipalities said we want some kind of legal determination that these funds are eligible, and the Treasury Department is not willing to comment on specific projects or programs or uses. They want you to make a decision about how they'll be used and to tell them how you're using it, but they won't provide that specific guidance to you. So having a legal opinion written may be a useful resource to share with your solicitor or with others who are questioning if the funds are really eligible for these types of uses. In July 2021, the US Treasury provided an updated set of FAQs, and they specifically had a section on parks and recreation that was then pulled over into the final rule. And again, it said that these are eligible uses and that municipalities and counties have significant discretion in how to award funds to these uses. So as you're thinking through how you might justify the use of ARPA funds as they relate to the goals of the ARPA guidelines, there's a few things that you should keep in mind, and a lot of them relate back to how important trails, parks, conservation, and recreation have become to our communities and to our economy and to our public health. So starting with the economy, trails, parks, and open space have been a critical part of our recovery. Pennsylvania's outdoor recreation economy is a $29 billion industry that sustains more than 250,000 jobs across Pennsylvania. This is not an insignificant industry to any county in Pennsylvania. And at a time when less resilient industries had to be shuttered, when workers weren't, permitted into manufacturing sectors, when small businesses were closing, our tourism sector, driven primarily by trails, parks, and open space and outdoor recreation and nature-based tourism, was thriving and really setting records in engagement. But it's important to note that this is not just a COVID trend. Even prior to COVID, access to bike and walking paths was a main determinant in how people chose where they would live. 50% of college graduates say place, so quality of place is more important than the actual job in their career search, which is nice to remember when we look enviously at places like Boulder, Colorado. Boulder, Colorado does not have better jobs than York County, Pennsylvania. They just have a better place to work in those jobs. And we can continue to invest in our places to make them just as enticing. And this is not just, conservation saying that, conservationists saying this. You can see the National Realtors Association, the Harvard Business Journal, 76% of corporate executives say that quality of life amenities such as trails and parks are important to site selection. So those who work in my field of economic development, our bread and butter is attracting new businesses to communities. And often they are asking about things like tax incentives and access to transportation and the cost of hiring a workforce, but increasingly asking about access to trails, parks, and open space so that they can attract the talent that they want to their businesses is a top consideration. And the places that have a high quality of life because they've invested in trails and parks will be competitive, and those who don't will not be competitive. We also have seen a shift in the economic development community in Pennsylvania and the importance that we as economic development professionals place on the outdoors. We commissioned a study through York College last year that showed 88% of economic development officials across Pennsylvania consider the outdoors and the outdoor economy to be very important to fulfilling their mission. So there is no space anymore between conservation and economic development. Conservation is a means of achieving economic development. And that's important when you look at the priorities within the ARPA funding. Trails and parks are also infrastructure, and you saw that infrastructure is eligible for use of ARPA funding. They provide well-documented stormwater benefits. They're important to multimodal transportation. Increasingly, they're providing important corridors for broadband and other utilities to expand. And federal funding, federal infrastructure funding is already used to fund trails. So again, this is not an outlandish concept. It's already a precedent that the federal government has followed through their other funding programs. Of course, in the COVID response in ARPA, public health is a really important component. The public health benefits of the outdoors have been well known for a long time, but obviously during COVID, access to outdoor recreation and the public health and mental health benefits that it provides have become more and more important, especially as other facilities such as gyms were closed or had limited capacity. And in the Rescue Act final guidelines, the Treasury really goes deeply into saying why they agree with this and why it's so important that trails and parks are part of our public health approach. And they specifically identify developing neighborhood features that promote improved public health and safety outcomes, such as parks, green spaces, recreational facilities, sidewalks, pedestrian safety features, all as helping to achieve the public health priorities within ARPA. So, again, from Treasury themselves. Parks, trails, and open space are also critical tourism assets. That's preaching to the choir with this group, but it's not something that folks across Pennsylvania always understand, in part because we take our trails and parks for granted, despite the fact that they bring so many people into Pennsylvania's communities. And while the tourism and hospitality sector on a whole was really set back during COVID, and you saw that in things like hotel tax revenue and heads and beds, the outdoor piece of our economy continued to flourish. So as we look for ways to invest ARPA in the tourism economy and want to make it more resilient, a key way to do that is to invest in these outdoor recreation amenities like parks, trails, and open space. Another, and this is the final one for this piece, another key priority is helping use these funds to address racial and socio-demographic disparities, both long-standing disparities that have led to disproportionate impacts of COVID on certain populations, and disparities that we saw emerge because of COVID. And in some cases, that's things like access to broadband, which we know has become a critical need, but also access to open space and recreational opportunities. And fortunately for us in Pennsylvania, DCNR, the Trust for Public Land and We Conserve PA, before COVID began, made a good investment in mapping access to parks and trails across Pennsylvania. So this idea of lack of access and how that results in disparities is not hypothetical. We can see it, in the mapping that exists. And you can see the snapshot that I did, which is showing how many people in a community have a 10-mile or 10-minute drive to trails. And you can see the red and the orange areas that pop up and show the areas that are the furthest from having access to trails. So as you are justifying investments in ARPA, you can also be thinking through, which parts of our community are we serving? Are they people who have been historically cut off from access to outdoor amenities? And the great thing is, I think I have it as a pop-up here. Let me see. Yeah, you can search, and I didn't put the county's name here, but because you can do this for any county or municipality, but find how many low-income households are served by trails and parks in your community, and to be able to say, well, 32% are right now, which is doesn't sound too bad until you flip it and say, well, that means 68% of our low-income households in our county didn't have access to trails or easy access to trails during the pandemic, which leads to public health disparities. So as you are looking for ways to justify the funding, you can use some of these resources that DCNR has created to really talk about it in a sophisticated way. The US Treasury spends a lot of time talking about how to justify who is disadvantaged, who's disproportionately impacted. But then, like they do with every other part of their guidance, they say recipients can identify other populations or groups beyond those presumed eligible that experience pandemic impacts or disproportionate impacts. So if you are if you're in a county and you want to look at the parts of your county that don't currently have park and trail access and make investments in parks and trails in those areas, that fits within the Treasury guidance. So, and I think I'll be able to move through this a little bit more quickly, but what are some of the specific ways that funds can be used? Because the Treasury guidelines do not go through and say, here's every single way you can spend ARPA funding. They include some non-exhaustive lists, and then they give some examples, but these are things that would fit in to what the guidelines say. So acquisition or construction of new trails, parks, and recreation facilities are eligible for all the reasons we just talked about: economic recovery, public health, stormwater management, equitable recreation access. Whichever one you think is most compelling and relevant to your community, you have that discretion. Because of the overuse of facilities, the maintenance of trails, parks, sport fields, and other amenities are eligible for investment. Funding of recreation programs reduced or eliminated due to lost municipal revenue. So that's that revenue replacement concept. Bicycle and pedestrian improvements, especially in tandem with other infrastructure projects that you might be funding, such as street paving due to water line replacements or stormwater improvements, both of which are eligible. Trail or park construction or rehabilitation undertaken as part of a broadband project. So we know there's literally billions and billions of dollars coming for broadband to the nation, at least $100 million coming to Pennsylvania for broadband. And that means wide scale construction of both aerial, but also buried conduit passing through our communities. That creates great opportunities to use rights of way for broadband, also for trail and bike and ped infrastructure. You may also choose to make direct allocations to nonprofit organizations. And if you're a nonprofit organization listening, you have the ability to ask your municipality or your county for these funds, including national and state heritage areas, DCNR designated conservation landscapes, the friends groups who serve state and federal public lands and often do much of the maintenance and work that augments our public sector employees, land and water conservancies and conservation organizations, including trail organizations, trail towns, river towns, outdoor towns, local and regional recreation commissions, main streets, bids, pretty much anybody that is trying to advance place-based, nature-based solutions to the problems in our communities would be eligible to receive direct allocations of funding. We have seen communities, including York, but many others, create competitive grant programs for nonprofits, and then maybe decide to prioritize conservation and outdoor recreation organizations within those. CVBs and TPAs and DMOs also obviously have an important role to play here and can receive direct funding and then make the decision to allocate funds to trails, parks, and businesses serving nature-based tourists, since that's proven to be such a resilient part of our tourism economy. There are specific rules for capital expenditures. So for a long time, the answer that some municipalities were getting from solicitors was that you could not fund capital improvements like trail construction with the funds. Treasury has said that's absolutely not the case. You can spend money on capital expenditures. For capital expenditure allocations under $1 million, you don't even have to write down why you are spending it. You just can know, okay, it fits in with our recovery plan. We're going to use the funding for this purpose. If you're funding a larger project, a project more than $1 million, you simply have to do written justification that says why you are using the funds that way and make that part of your regular reporting to Treasury. Written justification is not a huge legal task. It is simply describing why your project is eligible and it's consistent with your community's pandemic recovery strategy. So not a high bar to meet. And all organizations that receive direct allocations, whether you're giving a grant or whether you're deciding to invest in a project through a partner, still have to comply with these guidelines, obviously. So there's no way where you just give the money and somebody can use it for anything they want, in the same way that you can't just spend it on capital expenditures that you've dreamed up out of the blue, but if you can justify them, you certainly can. So is this happening in Pennsylvania already? Absolutely. In York County, our recovery task force made dozens of recommendations, including $1.1 million for conservation projects, including everything from $500,000 for trail construction, $400,000 for a park acquisition. Katie mentioned the $100,000 going to the South Mountain Trolley Greenway for planning. And then direct allocation to our National Heritage Area to continue their good nature-based work. In Warren County up north, their largest municipality is allocating $500,000 and seeking a $500,000 match from their county for a boat launch that's part of a waterfront development project. I think they're matching RACP in that case, as is the Hanover Trolley Trail project in York. Clinton County created a grant program specifically to fund newer enhanced outdoor amenities or enhancements to public spaces. Bloomsburg Borough, which is incredibly impressive, has allocated $3 million in their ARPA funding to implement their multimodal walk, bike, active transportation plan, particularly to serve as a match for state trail funding. And they were having problems finding other sources of match, and now they no longer have that problem because the federal can match the state. And then another township in our region that's using $150,000 for a brand new park property in an area that they identified as being underserved currently by park resources. So this probably vastly understates the amount of work happening across the state, but the more of these that we can share, I think the more at ease municipalities and counties are in making similar investments. So I'll wrap up by just talking through what the timing is. Every county and municipality began receiving funds in June 2021. Some of those have created task force or public input processes to determine how they use those funds. Others are using existing plans to say, look, we've done our planning, we know what our priorities are, and we're going to make investments based on those. In any case, the time to reach out is definitely now, especially with the final rule from Treasury being established and every municipality and county now being empowered to move forward and start spending these funds. The funds must be obligated by recipient governments by December 31st of 2024, so still a couple years there, and then expended by the end of 2026. So that is a considerable window, even for complex projects, even for acquisition projects, even for multi-phase projects to make a multi-year commitment. It's important to note that you can't go back in time very far. So March 3rd, 2021 is the earliest cost that you could have, but a county could certainly look back and say a project that happened in June of 2021, for example, incurred costs, and we want to reimburse for those costs. So it can be somewhat retroactive if you make a decision now. There are some reporting requirements involved in this, as anybody who's handling the funding knows. The important thing to know for our non-government partners is that although municipalities and counties have had to submit reports on how they'll use the funding, those reports have been very general in most cases. And it does not preclude having ongoing conversations about using ARPA funding for these purposes. So even if you've heard, well, my borough put in their plan already, so I guess I don't have a shot, that's not necessarily the case. I'd still encourage you to reach out. So in keeping with that, what can you do now? Reach out to your county or municipal leadership. If you're a county or you're a municipal leader, working with your nonprofit community and with your staff to look at these kinds of uses as part of how you'll allocate your funds. It's really important to understand how your municipality is making those decisions and how you can, be part of that process and not just wait to hear how the funds are being used. Making your request formal and putting it in writing is always good because then there's documentation of it. You saw earlier the legal opinion that you can share along with this presentation. And my recommendation as an economic developer, but also a conservationist, is that the more you can tie your work into public health, tourism, and economic recovery, it really amplifies your ability to get policymakers' attention, and it just puts you more squarely in the focus that ARPA has around economic recovery, tourism, infrastructure investments, and public health. Finally, this is not a time to be coy or humble, which we sometimes are as conservationists, and like to just sort of plot away and think we don't have the power to get significant sources of funding. This is a moment where we actually do. I can tell you, as someone who's led our recovery task force in York County, there are business groups and different sectors of our economy reaching out all the time to say, we deserve money, we want money for our project. And conservation groups should be doing the exact same thing. You should be advocating for your projects right along with everybody else. If you have data, you can back it up. So for example, in York County, we had trail counters on our Heritage Rail Trail that showed a 300% increase in trail use due to the COVID pandemic. That's a pretty definitive way to be able to say to your stakeholders, this is an essential service and it deserves investment and ongoing investment. We need to expand these resources throughout the county. And then finally, use your creativity. There will be some reflective, or I guess reflexive responses related to ARPA from, unfortunately, many of the groups, our statewide organizations that should be providing more, I would say, nuanced guidance to municipalities and counties, who have simply said, here's 4 uses of ARPA, anything else you should shy away from. That's not good guidance. So I would just encourage you to be creative, talk to as many people as you can. Obviously don't do anything that you feel is unethical or outside of what your priorities are for your community. But I just want to reaffirm that this is a historic moment with historic amounts of funding coming in. There will be counties and municipalities who use this as an opportunity to invest in real assets that will make their community more resilient, both economically and environmentally, for decades to come. And then there'll be some communities that don't. And I would say we want to be the communities that do. So if you have things that you're doing in your municipality or county, I would love to add to the list so we can encourage others statewide and frankly nationally to do the same. And of course, we can make the presentation available. And then Katie, if you want to let me know of any questions, feel free.
Absolutely. Thank you, Silas. I did not know that new guidance had come out, so that's great timing.
Yeah.
So we do have one question so far. We're running a bit behind, but if you do have a question that you haven't submitted yet, please get that into the Q&A panel. This one is from Wendy Smith. Would these funds be available for urban or suburban tree planting and maintenance programs?
So there's nothing in the guidelines that would say that it's not eligible. I would say the question would be, in your community, does that tie into some of these priorities that you just saw? Is it part of bringing economic vitality to a neighborhood or a community? Is it part of a stormwater approach? Do you believe that, like the data shows, that planting trees will increase property values in, maybe a neighborhood that's trying to stabilize or revitalize? Do you think there's public health implications? A lot of this is, if you can say in good faith that you believe your investment is checking those boxes, then yes, that's an eligible use.
Wonderful. All right, well, one other question I see. Can we post a link to the new guidelines? Yes, we will be, South Mountain Partnership will be providing a follow-up email, and we'll have tons of information and details for you from every section of today's agenda. So we'll include that as well. All right, so Silas, thank you so much again. You're getting lots of rave reviews in the chat saying thank you so much for the information. Your information is always current, always bridging creating a bridge between economic development and conservation. And that is so part of what we do. So thank you for helping make that happen.
Thanks, Katie. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, we are going to award the 10th annual Spirit of South Mountain Award now. Each year, we recognize an individual, project, or organization that has made a significant contribution to advancing a positive and sustainable future for the South Mountain landscape. The Spirit of South Mountain Award is presented at this event, our annual celebration. Nominated by Patty Nitterhouse, the 10th Spirit of South Mountain Award goes to Franklin County Visitors Bureau under the direction of Janet Pollard and to Lori Rice. It takes a village to protect a valley is the phrase used to describe this project and the two outstanding individuals who spearheaded the movement from 2017 to 2021, bringing together an entire valley to assess a 135-foot high, high-tension, high-voltage power line proposed to run for 29 miles from Shippensburg to the south and into Maryland. Thanks to the efforts of the Franklin County Visitors Bureau under the direction of Janet Pollard and Lori Rice, a farm owner and salon business owner, public officials at the state, county, and local levels, school board members, businesses, both large and small, landowners, nature lovers, and artists were brought together as a community to study the proposal and to ultimately say, no, thank you. The proposed routes put much of the valley at risk just west of Michaud State Forest and in the western heart of the South Mountain landscape. The routes cut across farmland, water resources, places of current and future agriculture, recreation, business, homes, and schools and historic places. Many farmers and property owners voiced concerns about the loss of productive farmland, aquifers and water quality, potential loss of income, salability of products, hazards of straight voltage, and more. Farmers managing preserved farms raised concerns that the project intruded on lands that was officially designated to be farmed in perpetuity using public money. Citizens expressed concerns over loss of quality of life due to disturbance to natural and agricultural views and what may happen to integrity of natural, cultural, and recreational places along the proposed path. By contrast, the project did not identify tangible benefits to locals. To sacrifice so much seemed unreasonable, this place that is considered our home. Lori Rice was propelled into action when she discovered that the proposed Transource route was plotted to cross her land. With Janet Pollard's extraordinary creativity and networking and organizational skills and support from the Franklin County Visitors Bureau, they founded Stop Transource Franklin County. The group engaged people, gathered resources to assess and question the need for the Independence Energy Connection Project and the findings of the PJM, the Regional Electricity Transmission Organization, who sourced the project. More people joined for reasons centering around caring deeply about preserving their shared economic stability, about cultural heritage, rural beauty, and landowner rights. These two individuals were instrumental in rallying businesses, public officials, and citizens to consider the impact the project would have on the land and if it would hinder the ability of communities to achieve their ideal future. With many more individuals as part of the Stop Transource group, efforts took various forms, and they gradually built public awareness of the impact this project would have on the views, water quality, and the quality of life in the valley. Actions included creating a website, town hall sessions for community education and engagement, billboards, hiring of legal expertise, and organizing participation in court hearings and legal proceedings, as well as launching numerous fundraising and community events. Stop Transource served individuals, families, property owners, and businesses, providing a way to leverage their resources and amplify their influence. Ultimately, they said, no, thank you. This brought together diverse community members to conserve the beauty, health, and cultural heritage of the Cumberland Valley as it passes through Franklin County. After over 4 years of community building work around what the ideal future looked like for the people of Franklin County, the Pennsylvania Utilities Commission unanimously accepted Judge Elizabeth Barnes' opinion and order on the Transource LLC power line siting application in May of 2021. And the PUC denied all applications associated with the project. TransSource's certificate of convenience was revoked, so the company can no longer operate as a public utility provider in the region. Janet's and Lori's efforts to build and maintain momentum encouraged others from throughout the region to appreciate our land as our home and as an important part of our well-being. The value of having clean water, historic places, beautiful views, and a landscape to enjoy. It also empowered those people to get involved and to speak up about what they want for the future of this landscape. The superintendent of Chambersburg School District hiked the cross-country trail one rainy morning to see how close the line would come to the Falling Spring Elementary School and the cross-country running course. County commissioners, Franklin County Area Economic Development Corporation, municipal leaders, the Pennsylvania Office of Consumer Advocate, and the Department of Agriculture got involved. Hundreds of Franklin County residents, farmers, organizations, municipal leaders, and businesses turned out to give testimony about what was at risk. And this is the most touching aspect of this project to me. Even people who were not directly affected by the project came together with those who were directly impacted, and they all believed in their ability to make a difference. That right there is why the South Mountain Partnership exists, to move people to ask what they want from the future of this place, our home, and to take steps to secure that future. Please join me in congratulating and thanking Janet Pollard and Lori Rice. Over the next few weeks, we will formally deliver the award to Janet and Lori, inviting them to share a few remarks with the broader partnership through our newsletter, our website, and social media. So I hope that you will join me in congratulating Janet and Lori. If you know them, when you see them, if you don't know them, you're going to get to know them through our social media and our newsletter, and please feel free to become their friends because they are amazing individuals, and they can also introduce you to hundreds of other people who took part in that initiative. So thank you again. We're running a little short on time, so I am going to transition us yet again. We're going to get a little snappy here to our South Mountain Partnership update. Okay, can you all see a PowerPoint? Give me a thumbs up or.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, thanks also to Patricia Bunn at Franklin County Visitors Bureau for putting together this amazing infographic for us that tries to capture at a glance the biggest and the best achievements of 2021. So I'm going to advance through it. I thought I was going to be able to use it, but I think I'm going to use the slides prepared. So just very quickly, some of the highlights that we felt best captured our role in the region and successes in 2021 include our work around solar. You heard how important this issue will be for Franklin County, and it will continue to be an issue for our other counties as well. We turned community interest into action for solar planning by focusing the content of our spring meeting entirely on solar development. And we delivered a really great cross-industry expert panel to our 84 registrants and attendees. And after that, we conducted a regional survey regarding needed next steps what the region thought, they needed in their communities and in their municipalities. And out of that, we formed a charter for the solar work group that we've just launched. As well, we've been working on the South Mountain Research Corps, and we're able to hire a wonderful gentleman by the name of Joe Baker. Perhaps you know him. He helped us to reach out to landowners and land managers throughout the region and solicit over 50 research needs. And then we pared that down, and we just released 6 specific research requests to universities, either existing within the region or doing work here on the South Mountain landscape. And we're preparing to award small student research proposals in areas around wildlife, habitat, climate, archaeology, economic impacts, stormwater, and farm labor. Finally, as you know, our bread and butter is as a convener. We are here to convene you, to share information, and to translate that into action. And this year was a bit challenging. It's the first year we were entirely COVID, I believe. So we brought together nearly 400 people through 5 regional events. We provided opportunities for you to network, to learn about things like the solar development, climate resilience and planning, water quality, and what it means to practice landscape conservation. We did that with the help of the Friends of the South Mountain Partnership. We have awarded $50,000 through the South Mountain Mini Grant Program to local municipalities and conservation groups. And through that, we've been able to leverage an additional $155,000 in matching funds. Julia will speak a bit more about that in a moment. We also produced and are about to release the South Mountain Adventure Guide. We produced that as an introduction to the region's natural and cultural history or heritage, and released that to the broader public so that we could turn a 400-page cultural landscape assessment into something that would appeal to the average visitor or person who wants to get out and explore our own region. And I'm thrilled to share that with you in our follow-up email to today's event. In addition, you will be receiving a year in review document that will have lots more details about our additional or work in addition to what I've highlighted here today. So keep an eye out for that. And when you get the email, be sure to open that document because it's going to have a lot more information about our work over 2021. We were able to get more detailed in that year in review document thanks to metrics that we are now submitting through the DCNR Conservation Landscape Program. And finally, we're pretty proud of our request for ARPA funds to our counties. We requested money to expand the use of our mini grant program. We would like to use the infrastructure that already exists through the South Mountain Mini Grant Program to get more money to our conservation, recreation, and revitalization groups throughout the region. And we think that we could serve in a really great way to distribute those funds. In addition to that, we asked for ARPA funds to be able to do some of our 2022 work around creating an environmental or state of the environment report card for the region. And so far in 2022, we are focusing on a more regional ask for ARPA funds. And what this looks like is we have put together, thanks to Julia and Tyler, we've put together basically a letter that any one of you and anyone can sign on to that will be sent to each county, encouraging them to allocate money for conservation, recreation, and place-based revitalization projects. So I think Julia volunteered to share the link to our website that has a whole host of that information regarding ARPA and our sign-on letter. If you have any questions about it, please feel free to reach out to Julia, Tyler, or myself. Later this month, we'll be releasing an RFP to hire a consultant to help us create the State of the Environment report card and interactive map for the region. This report evaluates data and trends in environmental categories such as air, energy, land, waste, and water to assess our current conditions on the ground. The environmental categories are selected by an interactive process, and we have been working closely with our planning departments in Adams, Cumberland, Franklin, and York counties on the scope of this work. And the State of the Environment report card portion will be similar to one created by Brooks Conservancy. In addition, we will create an interactive map that shows that environmental category and indicator data along with county comprehensive plans, leading to the creation of some sort of, or a sort of South Mountain landscape conservation map. And that's something that we've never had before, and that can be very, very valuable, especially as you heard Steve speak about how, you know, creating consistency across the landscape was a great opportunity that he saw. We'll present that State of the Environment report card and observations to anyone and everyone, you know, our counties, communities, municipalities. And from there, we'll move into another phase where we facilitate discussion around what is working well. What are we doing well as a region? And you know, we're seeing good indicators. And what might we need to improve upon, or are there any course corrections that we might see if indicators are poor in a particular category? And we want to work over the next several years alongside county agencies, partners, nonprofits, and others to identify distinct actions and projects to collaborate on. Potential projects could be conservation and recreation projects, or including informing policy and funding priorities. So more to come on that. Our third point here is that we are revamping the Power of the Partnership event. So in 2022, you actually get 2 of these events. And we decided to update the event's concept by having it in the fall, basically. And that means that we'll have this event again in September and every September here on. We're going to shift this celebration to emphasize a connection with the landscape by being more outdoors, holding it during harvest so that we can take advantage more of our local foods. We are so lucky to live in a region where we can eat locally and support our farmers in that way. And we'll still keep our 3 regional meetings. We're still going to have our 2 regional meetings and our Power of the Partnership. They're just going to be slightly, they're going to be scheduled at different times. So we'll still have our spring meeting in May. We'll have our 12th annual Power of the Partnership in September, and we'll have our winter meeting now in January. Lastly, our priority for 2022, our last big priority for 2022 is a website update. Julia and our communications subcommittee will be hard at work revamping our website so that we can better tell the story of the region, the work of our partners, and what's at stake as we strive in our mission and our vision. So now I am going to, one more slide, I believe. Okay. So if you're interested in signing on to our letter, I believe Julia has shared or is sharing the link to our website, and then that will allow you to take a look at the letter that we've drafted and allow you to sign on, and you'll see something similar to this. And this is what the regional state of the environment report card could look like. It's going to be really user-friendly. It's going to show us in an upbeat way what's going well, what might not be going so well, and maybe there's room for improvements. But when we're doing things right and when things are going well, we want to know so we can keep doing it that way and celebrate that work too. So coming up, make sure to see that and read that, open that 2021 year in review. Consider joining the Friends of the South Mountain Partnership. Become a subcommittee member through our Get Involved tab on our website, which is very simple, southmountainpartnership.org. Our mini grant program will open for pre-applications in April. We're holding a science summit on April 29th, hopefully, in person. And our spring partnership meeting is to be hosted by York County on May 13th. So now I will hand it over to you, Julia. And Julia has worked really hard on creating beautiful videos for our mini grantees that will tell you more about the projects.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Julia Chain. I'm the program manager of the South Mountain Partnership. I'm so glad to be here with you this morning, and especially glad to be announcing and celebrating our 2021 mini grant recipients. This program awarded $50,000 of funding to projects that are being operated by local municipalities, local nonprofits, and conservation groups. And they're leveraging a match of over $155,000, which is triple, which is a great example of how important investment in conservation can be. I saw a couple of our recipients are on the line here today. Forgive me because I checked at the beginning, so maybe a couple of you have joined, but I want to welcome Antonia and Sean from the Center for Land Use and Sustainability, Ed and Mary Franco from the Friends of Opossum Lake Conservancy, Matt Steinem from Dickinson College, and Pat Noggle from WAC, one of my favorite acronyms. And so that's a little preview on who you're going to be hearing from in the video I'll be about to share. I think that what's really neat about these projects is they show the diversity of resources in our region. And I'm so looking forward to working with them this year to bring their projects to light. So we have a really neat video today for you, sharing a little bit of an interview with each of our grant recipients. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share this video. I'm going to give it a second. I feel like sometimes it will get better loaded if I start it and pause it. Okay, so I'm just going to give it a second to start thinking. Katie, are you hearing audio?
Yes.
Okay, absolutely wonderful. I'm going to proceed and join me in celebrating our grant recipients.
I'm Dr. John Waugh. I'm a member of the Friends of Michaux State Forest. I'm the secretary and I'm on the board of directors. Our project is to install interpretive signs at the Carball Run Natural Area in Michaux State Forest, where there are Native American quarry pits in the rhyolite. Rhyolite is igneous rock. It's hard, it's fine grained, it fractures predictably. Native Americans used it for stone tools. They used it from the earliest people to come into North America until contact with Europeans in the area. You can find rhyolite tools throughout the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic regions. The only place in Pennsylvania to find rhyolite is South Mountain, and most of that is in raw material, and then they reduced it to smaller sizes to be forms or blanks that they could then take with them and make tools when they needed them. So this rhyolite is part of the South Mountain landscape, and it's part of South Mountain's history. We want to help preserve and protect these resources, the rhyolite and the archaeological sites. It's great. We're going to put interpretive signs at Carball Run. So with this project, you'll see a 2x3 site that explains the quarry pits and the Native American use of rhyolite. When you walk in the Carball Run, you can see the quarry pits and you can see these reduction sites where they were taking lithics and making them smaller. So the South Mountain Partnership mini grant is great because it allows us to make these signs and design them and install them. So when people come visit Carball Run, they can understand what they're seeing, the Native American quarry pits and the reduction sites, and they can go out there, walk into the Carball Run area and see all these archaeological sites.
Hi, I'm Matt Steinman. I'm the Energy and Livestock Projects Manager from the Dickinson College Farm, and I also brought along our farm dog, Pepe. The South Mountain Partnership grant is being used to fund an educational pavilion that we're building at the farm to be part of our anaerobic digester project. The anaerobic digester will use to process the manure from 150 dairy cows and food waste from the Dickinson College campus, as well as other commercial food waste generators in the community. By processing the manure and the food waste into biogas, we're creating renewable energy that we actually use to power both farms. So we're going to convert the biogas into electricity and power our farm and the neighboring dairy farm. The excess electricity will be sold back to the utility, generating a profit for the farm. Our digester project will serve as a model for farmers in the region, as well as community members interested in organic waste recycling. So to facilitate that, we plan a series of tours for the public and field days for farmers that will use the pavilion as a base site. So that way, if we have a rainy day or a hot sunny day, we've got a safe place to gather, and we also have a place to set up some educational demonstration materials. Processing manure and food waste in an anaerobic digester benefits the environment in several ways. One is we reduce stray methane emissions from food waste going to landfills, as well as from cow manure. So that helps to reduce greenhouse gas emissions directly. Also, when we generate renewable energy, we're replacing conventional energy sources that are a common source of greenhouse gases. Furthermore, we are resulting in reduced water pollution by properly managing manure in a more organized system. So for that reason, the project is also supported by the USDA and the US EPA and the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture. By presenting this as a model to other dairy farmers in the region, we hope to be a sort of a multiplier effect to have ideally 10 or more of these digesters set up in the next decade in our region. We really appreciate the support of the South Mountain Partnership, not only for the financial reason of enabling us to build the pavilion where we didn't have funding for that otherwise, but in addition to root the project in our community, our very local community, and to see that we are really part of a group of environmentally minded and agriculturally focused individuals that are helping to support a greener future in the Cumberland Valley and South Mountain area.
My name is Jay Young. Our organization is the Dillsburg Arts and Revitalization Council. We're located in Dillsburg, Pennsylvania. The South Mountain Partnership mini grant will be used for part of the Heritage Education Program in preserving the historic Montague Church in Dillsburg, Pennsylvania. And we're using that as part of our Heritage Education Program for the Northern York County School District. The building is used for these programs year-round, and we try to do at least monthly programs for the community. We cover all students in the Northern York County School District at all grade levels, which is probably in the neighborhood of about 3,000 students, along with an area from Wellsville to Franklintown to Dillsburg, and now we include Camp Hill, Bowling Springs, and Mount Holly. The old church, which was originally built in the late 1700s, the brickwork needs some maintenance. The bricks have become very porous, and they need to be sealed, along with painting around the stained glass windows, whose value has been appreciated as somewhere between $750,000 and $1 million. So we want to take care of the building because the building is a tangible part of what we teach and what we use, and it's the main part of our operations for the Dillsburg Arts and Revitalization Council. The importance of the building goes along with all the programs that we teach and present to the children in the schools and also local residents. It is important that that building is taken care of because we can never replace it. So many grants are for programs, but it is very difficult to get grants for preservation of a structure. And once they're lost forever. It is because of this that the South Mountain Partnership mini grant is extremely important because it not only gives us money and we can get a match for it, it doubles the amount of the money of the grant. And we can't explain how important that is. We can do so much with it to save a structure and preserve it so it can be used in generations to come.
I'm Antonia Price, and I am the project manager with the Center for Land Use and Sustainability at Shippensburg University. The Center for Land Use and Sustainability is an interdisciplinary center at Shippensburg University, and we run on grants and contracts, and we do work locally, regionally, and globally. We are receiving funding to support our Ship Composts initiative. This is a student project. Ship Composts will help us by reducing food waste on campus, and it will help us to reduce our carbon footprint by sequestering that carbon instead of sending all of our food waste to the landfill. It will generate a sustainable supply of compost that can be used on a campus farm and within the community to improve our soil quality. And then with improved soil quality, we will be able to have more crops that are generated that we can then donate to those in need to help reduce food insecurity in our region. What I love about this project is that it has the potential for so many different people to be involved. We are able to support student time on this project and invest in some crucial infrastructure so that we can share information with the community about sustainability and composting and soil health and reducing food waste.
My name is Sean Cornell. I'm a faculty member in the Department of Geography and Earth Sciences at Shippensburg University. At Shippensburg, I'm also an affiliated scholar with the Center for Land Use and Sustainability and a co-advisor along with Dr. Heather Solly for the Campus Farm and the Green League organization. Shippensburg has had a campus farm for a number of years, and one of the biggest challenges that we have is producing a sustainable supply of healthy compost for the campus farm. Being able to institute a Ship Composts program will be tantamount to allowing us to increase our production and provide a much more sustainable and accessible supply of food for our community members in need. This project initiated several years ago by students, and I think that's what's pretty exciting, is that it's students that realize that they don't want to be part of the problem, they want to be part of the solution. And we instituted something known as the Stewardship Pledge. So the Stewardship Pledge is a student-driven initiative. That pledge says, I will do this today to make a difference. And the Ship Composts is a way that we can actually achieve that goal of becoming more sustainable.
My name is Madeline Davis. I am a senior at Shippensburg University studying environmental sustainability. I'm also the president of Green League, our student environmental organization. We as students are going to be helping teach the other students. We're going to be involved in the education aspect and teaching how their actions are directly impacted and how we are going to be reducing emissions from the very beginning, from when they are picking up the food, choosing what they're wanting to eat, to bringing it back to the compost, being able to sort it properly, and ultimately making it back onto our farm. It's amazing to be having help from outside sources. It's helping us realize that it's not just us trying to make this happen. Other people care, and they're willing to help us achieve our goals as students.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. This project will make a huge difference on campus and in our community, but we couldn't do it without these grant funds. And so we're just very grateful for the South Mountain Partnership and for your support of local projects like this that are very collaborative and that will hit multiple areas that will help make our region more sustainable and more self-sufficient in the future. So thank you.
I'm Ed Franco. I'm a board member of Friends of Opossum Lake Conservancy, otherwise known as FOLK. So Friends of Opossum Lake was started from a dry lake bed. It rose out of a dry lake bed really in 2006 when we were told by the Fish and Boat Commission that the lake needed to be drained because of safety issues around the dam and spillway. Our initial goal was to bring awareness for rebuilding the dam and the fishery there. Possum Lake is about 5 miles west of Carlisle on the north side of the Conneaut Creek. Possum Creek begins its journey on North Mountain, feeds the lake along with several other small streams, and then at the outlet runs about 2,000 feet down to the Conneaut and then on to the Chesapeake Bay and of course the ocean. Rebuilding the dam and spillway took about 7 years of pretty hard work on many people's parts, and one of the things we found out from working together as folk is that we could do a great deal more by creating partnerships and alliances, and that together we were able to do some things probably that none of us individually could do. Working together, especially with some of our legislators who were able to release some capital funds. Ultimately, in 2013, we were able to help support Fish and Boat rebuilding the dam and the lake.
Hi, I'm Mary Franco, and I'm the current president of Friends of Opossum Lake Conservancy, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about our trail. The original Angler's Access Trail was designed to create public awareness of this lovely green space that's so close to Carlisle. So we designed a 4-mile wilderness trail that basically follows the perimeter of the lake. So the trail crosses streams in 6 places. 5 of these streams are inlet streams, and we had obtained DEP permits to build footbridges over all of these streams. The 5th crossing is the outlet stream. At the time we were building the trail, we did not have the sufficient funds to pay for the engineering and construction of a large bridge in a floodplain. We are now planning to build a bridge on the outlet stream off the roadway and to continue on the footpath. So the entire trail will be on a footpath. So we call this section the missing link. We felt like this new bridge would be a wonderful place to have educational signage for the public. It's a good focal point for people to come and learn about the lake and also the lake's role in flooding, in sediment control, and riparian buffers. We are very appreciative of South Mountain Partnership providing the funding to design and install these 4 signs that we're going to do.
We're hoping that we can capitalize on some of the partnerships that we've developed over these many years, including with South Mountain, to get more and more people thinking about how they could take an active part in water quality improvement in the region.
So I just want to say thank you again to South Mountain Partnership for supporting this project and making it possible.
My name is Sean Corwell. I work in Franklin County for Green Township. We want to thank South Mountain Partnership for teaming up with us and providing some of the funding towards this project. We are restoring approximately 2,000 feet of the Filman Run waterway, which is located in Green Township. Restoring the Filman Run is important because we're going to be reducing the amount of pollutants which will go into that waterway. It'll help the fish habitat from Green Township, Franklin County, the whole way down to the Chesapeake Bay, and it also reduce the amount of sediment that will eventually end up in the bay. The stream runs through Green Township into the Conneaut Creek, and then of course that runs down to the Potomac River and into the Chesapeake Bay. So it benefits a whole lot of habitats and fish in the area, reduces the pollutants, which will eventually end up in the bay. Green Township is a very progressive township. The Board of Supervisors are always looking at ways of conserving land, our waterways. The Board of Supervisors recognize that being progressive and taking on these conservation roles that we are helping the future and conserving those types of habitats. The impact to our residents and people around Green Township is it's going to provide cleaner water, and the residents can enjoy those waterways as much as they want. Receiving the South Mountain Mini Grant impacts the project greatly because it will help with the design of this project. It is an impaired stream. We already recognize that. Basically, what an impaired stream is, that stream is collecting sediment, it is collecting pollutants. So we have identified that stream really needs to be restored, and that's what we want to do here in the future.
My name is Pat Naugle. I am the president of the Watershed Alliance of Adams County. We have a mission of improving and protecting the watersheds of Adams County. We are aware of the South Mountain Partnership Grant Program, and it's one that we've used before for repair and buffer planning. And this time we want to use it to test our streams for pathogens. And the reason we're doing that is we kind of backed into it. As much as we think we know about the water, there's always more to learn. So what we learned is that about 1/3 of our streams in Adams County are impaired for recreation. We were somewhat surprised by that and figured that if we're surprised, most of the people in Adams County probably were not aware of the situation in the water with regard to pathogens. We started looking into it, and we decided we'd do some testing, and we want to make the testing rigorous enough that we can submit it to Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection so they can add it to their water quality portable monitor. And then the most important thing we think is to inform the public, because we think that's the missing piece here. That most people are not aware that when they're out wading in water or fishing or canoeing, kayaking, that the water has pathogens in. So the pathogens that we are testing for are coliform and E. coli. We're going to inform folks the precautions they should be taking to make sure that they don't inadvertently get into water that has a lot of bacteria in it. South Mountain Partnership mini grants are great from our perspective because they're relatively easy to apply for, and all the monies are focused locally within the South Mountain, so that the partners that go for the grants are trying to do something very specific to the area. In this case, it provided funding. Each one of these pathogen tests costs $30, so we're testing each location 5 times. Right now, we're trying to determine how many locations, but at least 21 and as high as 30. So the importance of doing this testing is to inform the public of what's in the water and where we're finding it. Precautions are don't drink the water, don't go in the water if you have open sores or cuts, things like that. We'll be very specific on what those precautions are in our communication plan, which will be a major part of this.
Thank you, Julia. That was wonderful. I don't know if you were able to see all of the positive comments, but very invigorating, lots of positivity. You are sending everyone off feeling good with the warm fuzzies, and that is what this event is all about. So thank you, and congratulations to our grantees. And thank you to our grantees for having the ideas, putting together the projects and making them happen. We're not the ones doing that work, you are. So thank you. This marks the end of our program today, and I want to sincerely thank you all for spending your limited time with us and for engaging us around the work of the partnership, but more importantly, the work of our partners. That's what this is all about. So this is not goodbye, but until next time, keep in touch. Make sure to open that follow-up email because it's going to have a ton of good information for you. So stay connected, and we will see you soon. Take care.